And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Mike Hill. We are live here at the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Wednesday, we'll be live at the New Orleans Convention Center, site of Super Bowl 59. We'll have plenty of insight and analysis and coverage. Our Scott Grayson, we just talked to him last hour. He is in New Orleans, and we'll be getting some information for us tomorrow as well. One thing we've been talking about for much of the day is the opening line for the Super Bowl. Chiefs -1.5, over under 50.5. The current line, it has not moved. It is still 1.5, Adam Caplan. And a little surprised that the Kansas City Chiefs are still the favorite. Does that sound like it should be Kansas City as the favorite?
Yeah, I thought it would open up at 2, Mike. It's strictly because of experience in this game. That's why. The teams are very even. They've changed, particularly the Eagles, since the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Coaching changes, pretty significant coaching changes on both sides of the football. Whereas Andy's got Spags back. He's got Matt Nagy, who could, by the way, when Andy retires, whenever that is, he could be his replacement. So he's got a lot of the sameness. There are more changes on the player roster than the Chiefs have. So I could certainly understand the continuity part of it, but this Eagles team has tremendous upside. You mentioned Hurts and Sirianni, Mike, before I came on here. They've won a ton of games together. They've won big games together. And here we are once again 2 years later where, look, I don't wave the pom-poms. We call everything down the middle, but I don't think we're going to have any problems with the turf this time. That's not going to be a problem inside the Superdome.
I would agree with you, and I thought that was a big story about the last time. That Eagles team had 70 sacks, more than this Eagles team did, and they could not get to Patrick Mahomes. And we talked about this in the first hour, Adam, about Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, the role that they have in the Eagles winning this Super Bowl.
Oh, there's no question, Mike. And particularly now, we'll talk more about this on your show later this week with you and Jeff. I know you guys are hosting together. But you look at Kansas City's problems, Mike. They've gone through 3 different left tackles. Joe Tooney, their left guard, who's outstanding, at one point was the highest-paid guard in NFL history. They'll make that decision whether starting yet another game at left guard. And then you've got Mike, don't call him Frank Caliendo, that is going to start at left guard. So that's not good. Those are 2 significant changes. Other than that, the Trey Smith is outstanding at right guard. Creed Humphrey, the best center in football. And right tackle's okay, but the bottom line is when you look at it, that's an advantage, Mike, the Eagles' defensive line. Now, we know they don't blitz. They're a bottom 3 blitz rate. Chiefs are top 7 blitz rate, which is interesting. Spags does it a different way. It's not all zone blitz. He throws a variety of blitzes at them. And coverages, by the way, he has a variety of coverages too. Because what he does is he has those sim pressures like the Eagles do. Eagles do a lot of stunning and sim pressures. They're trying to confuse the quarterback. So we'll see what happens, Mike. This is a very even matchup. And let's not forget, the last time the Eagles were in New Orleans was Week 3, and that's when they completely dismantled that Saints offense. And by the way, the Saints offense had never been the same after they were blowing teams out the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, and let's get a little update on the injuries here with Adam Caplan. The injuries after the game 2 weeks ago, or I guess a week ago against Washington with Landon Dickerson, he could not finish the game. Juergens did not start the game. We know that Nakobe Dean is already out of the game. So injury-wise, Brandon Graham, what do we know about this Eagles team and their health entering this week?
Yeah, the Brandon Graham story is remarkable. And I was texting with Dr. David Chow, the former Chargers team doctor, who does the video analysis. He's the only former NFL team doctor that does this. And we're going to talk to Dr. Chow this week. And, look, he said, we didn't talk through phone, so I can only go through checks, but he still wants to see him go through the week. Now, Brandon is going to play because unless he has a setback in practice, which could always happen, yesterday, as I understand, was the test week to really see what he can and can't do. Brandon himself told the media that it went well, so we're expecting, barring a setback, that'll play. And remember, it's his left triceps, which got surgically repaired on December 3rd. It's just over 2 months since the surgery, and he's been rehabbing. And he's going to wear a brace on that left elbow, Mike, because the triceps goes from your elbow to near the top of your shoulder. So it's look, we know Hollis Thomas had the injury when he was with the Saints. It's very, very hard to come back quickly. It's typically a 4 to 5 month rehab, as I was told. So he's coming back way early. We have no idea how many snaps he can handle. I know people are speculating 8, 10, 12. Nobody has any idea. Mm-hmm. It's simply how he gets through practice this week and what the coaches think of the game film. And Brandon, by the way, has got to look. He's just got to communicate to the coaches because the other thing is, I have no idea if he's been able to lift weights. We don't know what when you're 36, he turns 37 in April, I think. We have no idea on atrophy and what's happened with his body. We don't know. We have no idea his ability to lift. Now we know lower body obviously he can lift because it's you're not worried about that. It's strength-wise with his arms. And Andrew DeCecco and I did a really cool. We did an update today. We went through all the injuries for both teams. It's really, quite frankly, to the Eagles. The Chiefs will have everybody on the 53-man roster. But so here's the good thing, Mike. I do want to update a couple things. A.J. Brown and JalenHurts with both had left knee injuries. They're no longer listed on the injury report with anything. So that's great news, Mike. Now, a couple pop-ups happened. Moro Jomo with a shoulder injury. They expect him to play. Zach Bond did not practice last Friday. He's got a groin injury. They expect him to play. Devontae Smith was his recurring hamstring problems. Didn't work last week. They're not worried about it. He'll play. One little minor one, Mike, I do want to mention C.J. Uzama, who's a blocking tight end. The question for him is, because he's on IR designation for return, so they'd have to clear up a roster spot. And obviously BG's they're going to have to clear up a roster spot with him. So it's hard to go through their 53-man roster. And other than Lewis Seen, who's the safety, the former first-round safety that the Bills had, they signed him off the Bills practice squad through a 2-year deal. Other than him and Eli Ricks, it's hard to find anyone they'd feel good about releasing or feel like it wouldn't be a big deal. So the roster moves, we should let people know. The last day for roster moves is Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, so keep an eye on that over the weekend.
What about the Chiefs? You mentioned Tooney and the offensive line there. Other than that situation, it seemed like they are relatively healthy as well?
Yeah, they've been one of the healthiest teams. In fact, Harrison Butker, he missed a decent chunk of time. But other than that, no, Hollywood Brown came back from that sterner. It's kind of like he had a collarbone injury and another part of his below the collarbone broke. That's why he missed 3 months. But he's back. He came back late in the regular season. Other than him, as I go through kind of what's happened to their injury situation, they've been really healthy. I mean, Mike, quite frankly, Chris Jones had a calf injury, missed the final 2 games of the regular season. But that's it, man. They're part of getting deep in the playoffs, Mike, is how healthy you are. And I think sometimes we forget about that. And the Eagles 2017 team, remember, let's not forget. Jason Peters, remember, with his significant injury. Darren Sproles and others. But you've got to have a bench. The great thing is we move back to this 2024 team. The depth on this team, Mike, is, let's call it like it is, has been way better than we expected.
One guy, the depth I want to get your take on, because he did play in this game last year, and that was Oren Burks. Yep. Do you anticipate Kansas City going after him again this year, much like they did last year?
Well, see, here's the thing, Mike. Let's not forget. That one, there was no way that the Niners could prepare for that because Dre Greenlaw runs onto the field and tears his Achilles, who Burks would fill in for. So I know the fans were getting on Burks, the Niner fans, but you got to understand that's a tough deal. Now, what I think you can do, and I know where you're going here, misdirection. Burks is he's about 6'3" and 0.2 of an inch, so he's a long, rangy linebacker. His first playing time was not good, but the last 2 games he's played really, really well, filling in for Nakobe Dean. So that's not been a problem. Now, is their depth at inside backer is not great? That's certainly a problem. But the Eagles are a nickel team anyway, so you're only going to play 2 linebackers. Unless somebody gets hurt, they're in pretty good shape there. The other thing is, Mike, we should mention getting the bye last week. We talked about JalenHurts and Brown's left knee injuries. But Landon Dickerson, I know he didn't practice last week, and the Eagles expect him to play. Yeah. Getting him off his feet, getting Cam Jurgens with that bad back, where he could just get some rehab in. That's really big. The Eagles, of the two teams, there's no question the Eagles had a greater need for it. And the bye, getting that bye and getting the Super Bowl. Thank goodness, by the way, that you remember, Mike, over 20 years ago, we did not have the bye where they play the next week.
Yeah, I mean, routinely when I was a kid, my birthday just passed January 24th, and there'd be years where the Super Bowl was being played on my, January 24th, 25th, somewhere in that range. We used to get the Super Bowl. Now there's an extra regular season week, extra playoff week. I mean, this thing's pushed all the way into the second week of February now, but you're right. This extra week really helping Philadelphia. Brandon Graham could potentially play. It probably means Juergens and Dickerson will play. And then, as you mentioned, it should clean up everybody else from the little nagging things, at least as healthy as they could be at this stage of the year. Your A.J. Browns, your JalenHurts, even Saquon Barkley, bangs, bruises. This extra week really evens everything up.
It does. It really helps it out. There's no question. Now, I will say this. Dickerson's expected to play barring a setback. We have no idea how effective he's going to be. Let's not forget, he left the last game. Everyone saw him on the sidelines, writhing in pain, pacing back and forth, barely wanted to play. They shut him down. And Juergens, who did next to nothing in practice 2 weeks ago on that Friday, he had to come in and did a yeoman's job. Really did a nice job considering his back was really bothering him. In fact, you could see him in the locker room. I know the media was able to see him struggle a little bit with it, but he's good to go now. But we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens. By the way, the practice week is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Both teams should be able to practice at the stadium on Saturday. Saturday, and then they got the game at 6:30. So the week is. And by the way, we've got the media night tonight. For decades, used to be on Tuesday afternoon. No longer. It's Monday night because. The clubs complain that they did too much media availability as the week progresses. They wanted them to be done with that big media night, so they're doing it tonight in New Orleans.
Well, Goodell is talking now. One of the things he said, they have not had any formal discussions on extending the regular season to 18 games. As we're talking about the rest and it's into the second, you're going to be talking about going into the third week of February potentially if that goes to 18 games, and I think you just said that's going to happen.
It's going to happen, and we're going to get 2 byes. Oh, yeah. In fact, I was very surprised that the NFLPA didn't shoot this down. Like, the 17 game for years, they shot it down, and they finally gave in. It's inevitable. It's going to happen, and then we'll have 2 byes. So this season is long enough. And you're right, Mike. It'll have to extend another week in February. It'll push free agency back to the third week of March. And by the way, the draft now could go mid-May. I mean, that's not ideal, but that's the reality of it all.
There's so much about this game. We're going to have some great football at 4s, and Jeff's going to be with me. We're talking to the guys at 4 o'clock, and I know, Adam, you're doing stuff with Sports Grid, and we get a chance to catch up with so many interesting people. We've got some really cool guests already lined up. We're looking forward to some of the other people. But one of the big storylines a couple of years ago was after the game that JalenHurts played. How well he performed on that big stage in that particular game. And I guess on a Monday here, I'll just ask you, do you anticipate this being a Hurts game or a Barkley game?
Oh, it's funny. People point to the Chiefs' great run defense. Listen, with the Chiefs, they're up so much, Mike, you have to throw in the second half if you're behind. But I know I'll be sitting down with you guys at some point later in the week. I feel like Hurts is going to rise to the occasion. I really do. Very impressed with this game against Washington. I know the yardage has not been there this season. There's a variety of reasons for that, but I love the game that Kellen Moore called. I expect him to do a really good job. It's not easy to play against Spags. See, the thing is, Mike, the Chiefs are not very talented at a corner. They just execute like crazy. And Trent McDuffie, by the way, is their best corner. He doesn't play nickel anymore. He plays inside. He's on the outside, which is really interesting. Spags changed it up. It's a really good use of personnel, and I give Spags credit. So I just feel like Hurts rises to the occasion. You know what you have to do against Mahomes. They know Mahomes. They played him 2 years ago. They beat him last year, by the way. And was that a Monday night game in Kansas City? I forget. That was missed that really tough schedule. So the Eagles know him. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows Spags. The Eagles know Spags very well. It's a very even matchup. Yeah, but before we leave, the over-under has not changed. I mean, no, the totals, the point spread has not changed at 1.5. The over-under total has gone down a point, depending or point and a half, depending which book you like. And I can't see the Eagles. I can't see it dropping to a point. I could see it going up to 2 points because of Kansas City's success and going for that first three-peat.
Yeah, the one thing, Spags, they know this team well. You just said it. They played 2 years ago. They know. You watch a lot of JalenHurts. You send him pressure up the middle and trying to get him to, anytime he seems to break that pocket, that play's dead. It seems like.
I know. He's not like Mahomes. Look, Jalen, I get it. He's not the greatest throwing on the run, but he's a big game quarterback. He just is. He seems to rise to the occasion. Now, the Tampa Bay game, the Tampa Bay games of the playoffs, let's not forget, A.J. Brown didn't play. Sometimes when they've played in big games, they haven't had everybody. But as we said here, and we'll end it with here, they're going to have everybody, barring any setbacks in practice. And if that happens, let's go. I mean, it's going to be one of those games, Mike. It's very even. I think the odds makers got it right. But the only thing the Eagles cannot have happen, you cannot give it to Mahomes being up 3 points and him have the ball last. That can't happen. Like that. I know they don't control a lot of that, but you don't want that. One of the best closers in NFL history. That's not what you want.
Well, and we'll leave it like this. Hopefully, if it comes down to a foot, whose foot do you feel better about? Butker, who won the game 2 years ago with 8 seconds left, or Jake Elliott's foot?
The butt kicker, yeah. No, look, at least the game is indoors, Mike.
Yep.
And Jake's been an incredible big game kicker.
Let's just hope it doesn't come down to an extra point kick for Jake.
Oh, and it's just so weird. You can't make a 33-yard extra point, which is a short field goal. I don't understand it. But again, let's hope Tyler Brown, the specialist coach, who did a great job when he took over in 2021. Actually, remember, he cured all that happened with the former staff. He turned Jake around to be arguably the best kicker over 3 years. This year it's been struggling, but let's hope they got it. I got to run, Mike. I got another interview to do, but let's see what happens later this week.
All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast, and we will catch up with him in New Orleans here on the Sports Bash. All right, there you go, a little breakdown of everything